welcome to our April Young Professionals Education event. I know most of you, but for those who don't know me, my name is Maggie Christian. I'm the Operations Director for the La Crosse Chamber of Commerce. And we are excited today to have some of our local representatives join us and share a little more about themselves and what they do in their role. Before we jump into that, we just have a couple housekeeping items and announcements coming up. So first, I want to just take a moment and thank all of our young professionals sponsoring companies. These are the companies that make this entire program possible, including events like these. So I want to say a special thank you to Ultra Federal Credit Union, Cooley Bank, Dairyland Power Cooperative, 5 Star Telecom, Gunderson Health System, Quick Trip, Mayo Clinic Health System, Weiser Brothers, and Whipfly. And I'm going to pass it over to Kaylee Nelson, who is our Young Professionals Chair, just to talk about what we have for upcoming events for you guys over the next month.
Hey guys, good to see you. Thank you for joining, and thank you, of course, Brad and Jill and Steve for your time this afternoon, and looking forward to hearing from all of you. But just wanted to share, we do have a couple events coming up in May. So I just wanted to get those on your minds and on your calendars. You should get emails in the next week or so about them too. So the first one is we're doing another virtual speed networking event. This would be our third one. And we've had fun with these, so we're just going to keep them rolling. This one's going to be an after hours one again on May 12th at 5 p.m. So it's just an hour long, and we'll kind of bounce. If you haven't been to one, we bounce from person to person and just give you 5 to 10 minutes to chat with new people and network a little bit. So that one's coming up. And then we're also going to do our first in-person event May 20th. We're doing a social out at the patio at Big Al's. So looking forward to that one. Going to be pretty casual. Just show up when you can. It starts at 5:30. But yeah, show up. Looking forward to networking and getting in person again and enjoying some drinks and pizza. So yeah, that's what we have coming up. And again, thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Kaylee. Just a couple of housekeeping items as we go into the Q&A. Feel free to enter any questions you have in the chat box. We're also a pretty intimate group, so I'm open to, if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, that's perfectly fine as well. So moving in, I want to just say thank you, like Kaylee said, to our reps today. Representative Jill Billings, she is Assembly District 95. Representative Steve Doyle, Assembly District 94, and then Senator Brad Pfaff for Senate District 32. So we're going to start just with some easy self-introductions. Take some time and just share a little more about yourself, how long you've been serving, maybe the locations that fall under your district, and anything personally that you want to share with the group. And Jill, we will start with you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here today. I represent the city of La Crosse, a little bit of town of Shelby, and town of Campbell out on French Island. I was elected 9 years ago, probably like 8 months after you, Steve, right? Mm-hmm. We both were elected in special elections. My state assembly rep ran in the Senate recall race and won, and that's Jen Schilling, and her seat opened up, and I ran. Was happy to be elected and serving, I think maybe I'm on my 10th year now in the state assembly. It's gone quickly. I started when I first moved to La Crosse, like so many people, I thought I was going to just live there for a few years. I gave up a marketing job in Madison and followed a boy, like so many people do. I was married, my husband was in law school, so we followed his job. I gave up mine, moved to La Crosse, and started working at the Friendship Program, teaching English as a second language and citizenship to Hmong adults. It was a great job. I love our Hmong population in La Crosse. It was a great job. All my students were motivated to learn, and there was no discipline problems. And after 10 years, all my students went on to the tech college or got jobs in the community. And then I ran for election on the county board, which I loved, that immediate local government representation. Basically, you can run on very little money. Mostly it's shoe leather, knocking on your neighbor's door and talking to them. And it was a great experience. Probably one of my highlights, there were several. I mean, I really enjoyed being on the county board. One of my highlights was helping set up our OWI treatment court under the leadership of Judge Perlich and Judge Pacell at the time, with the idea rather than locking people up and not dealing with the addiction issues, the underlying problem of why people were driving drunk. We dealt with the addiction issue with immediate sanctions and rewards and getting people into treatment and coming back to talk with judges who were checking in on their lives on a very regular basis. And there was less recidivism with OWI treatment courts. That was probably one of my highlights, was working on that issue. And then when the seat in the state assembly opened up, I was excited to run and encouraged by friends and jumped in that race and won, and have been happy ever since in the state assembly. If I had to pick 3 areas of concentration, I would probably say children and family. I'm the ranking member on that committee. I am a co-chair of our bipartisan bicameral children's caucus, where we educate legislators on children's issues. And then substance abuse and prevention. I'm ranking member on our substance abuse and prevention committee, or drug abuse and prevention committee, and I'm on the state council on alcohol and other drug abuse appointed by the governor on that statewide committee. And so that would be my second area, probably working with addiction issues. And then probably colleges and university now, and also tourism, but I've handed that over to somebody else to get new eyes on that issue and education. That was a wonderful glitter and rainbows committee. You know, it was really fun, but and a huge important industry in Wisconsin. But I'd say my third area now of focus is really higher education and sitting on the building commission with over $1 billion budget on buildings on campuses. I'm the chair of the higher ed subcommittee of that commission, and with Viterbo, Western, and UWL in my district, that's an area of focus for me too.
Thanks, Jill. Steve, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. I also want to thank everybody for inviting us to speak today and for participating, and hopefully with all the great questions that you'll be asking. Let me give you a little bit of background about me. I am a North Side boy. I was born and raised in La Crosse County. I grew up on the north side of La Crosse, and then when I was in 5th grade, we moved up to Alaska, that had a population of about 3,000 back in those days, and obviously much different today. I have always been interested in politics, although initially I was just going to be a lawyer. Now I'm a lawyer and a politician. But I had the opportunity when I was in college to get an internship out in Washington, D.C. for our congressman at the time, Al Baldus. And that turned into a job that was supposed to be a permanent job, except that he got defeated a few months later. So my permanent job was a temporary job. But it certainly got my, my interest in politics to be even higher. So I came back to Wisconsin, and I went to law school at Madison, and I worked for a state senator, Joe Andrea from the Kenosha area. Joe was a Democrat who taught me a lot about how to conduct myself in politics. As I said, he was a Democrat. His closest ally, he used to brag, was Republican Governor Tommy Thompson. He was in the governor's office all the time, or the governor was down in our office all the time, talking about how to work together to get things done. And I learned an awful lot from that. So after law school, I came back here, and I was elected to the county board. And for about 10 years, I was the county board chair here in in La Crosse before I got elected in the special election for the seat that I have now. As county board chair, and by the way, all three of us have a background in county board politics. All three of us served on the county board. You learn a lot and you get a lot done on the county board. It's the body that's closest to the people compared to, say, state government or federal government. And I like to say that you argue, you yell at each other during the meetings, and then when you're done, you go down the street to the bodega and you have a drink and you talk about your families and your friends, and you get to know your colleagues as human beings. We don't see that so much in the state assembly, and God help those people out in Washington, D.C. They don't, see that at all. And I think that makes a really big difference because you learn how to work together when you're in those levels of government. So I took that lesson with me when I got elected to Madison, or to the state assembly in Madison. But while I was on the county board and as county board chair, we got a lot of things done that I was real proud of. The West Salem Business Park, which has created over 300 jobs. That was a project, actually my first project when I got elected as chair. The Household Hazardous Materials Program that is still very popular in La Crosse County was my second project that I started when I was county board chair. So I was real proud of that one too. And like Jill, I had a lot of interest in criminal justice reform issues, and I set up a committee called the Sentencing Strategies Committee that brought in the judges and the defense attorneys and the prosecutors and probation people and community people. We got together and talked about how to make our criminal justice system in La Crosse County better. And it was very successful, and it eventually merged into what is today the Criminal Justice Management Council that still has a lot of the same makeup in terms of all of the major players in the criminal justice system sitting down at a table and trying to work things out to have a very effective criminal justice program in La Crosse County. And we're very proud of that. And, Jill talked about the OWI program. La Crosse County, and this has been a few years now, but we did an audit to see how we did in repeat offender drunk driving cases. And we had the lowest rate of any county in the state of Wisconsin for repeat offender drunk drivers because we did it right. And, Jill and the people that were on that committee working on that particular component really changed the way of thinking in La Crosse County in terms of how we handle criminal justice. It used to be that we would lock people up in the jail for a few months. And as soon as they got out of jail, they went kitty corner across the street to Dell's Bar, and they were drunk before they even got home. We weren't solving their problems, and now we're doing it much differently. So I'm real proud of La Crosse as a model for the state. But all good things come to an end, and I gave up my county board chair seat to become the state representative from the 94th district when my predecessor, Mike Hipsch, was appointed by Governor Walker to be his Secretary of Administration. So that was in 2001, and I got elected on May 3rd of 2001, May 3rd being a special day because that's my wife's birthday. It's also the day that I got engaged. So it's an easy day to remember because all sorts of good things seem to happen on that day. During my time in the assembly, I have tried to work both sides of the aisle because I believe in that, and also in my particular seat, it's a necessity. I am one of only 2 Democrats in the state assembly that represents seats that were won by Donald Trump over Joe Biden in this last election. I work well with both sides of the aisle. Coming out from a business background, I feel very comfortable working with members of the business community, which is why I'm on committees like the Insurance Committee and the Financial Institutions Committee and work on those kind of issues. But the other thing that I really like is working on the bipartisan issues. And so I was the chair of the Speaker's Task Force, or the co-chair of the Speaker's Task Force on Child Welfare, which is kids in the abuse and neglect system. And then I was the vice chair of the Suicide Prevention Task Force, again, a bipartisan commission last session. And in both cases, we put together a package of bills that ran through the legislative process. I always used to say, abused kids aren't Democrats or Republicans. People who are contemplating suicide aren't Democrats or Republicans. They're human beings, and there aren't Democratic or Republican responses or solutions to their situations. They're human interest solutions. And so it was easy to find common ground on those issues. And so I really like that lesson that I learned from Senator Andrea back in the 80s that I took with me when I was county board chair working with our local governments here in La Crosse. That same message and that same model is what I took to Madison. And so I like doing those kinds of things. And that's what I continue to work on in my time in the legislature. So I'm going to wrap it up at this point, and we'll turn it over to our esteemed State Senator Brad Pfaff.
Well, thank you, Representative Doyle, and thank you, Representative Billings, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're well. My name is Brad Pfaff, and I serve as the state senator for this region in the Wisconsin State Senate. La Crosse, Vernon, Crawford, and Southern Monroe counties, about 175,000 people in this area. I like to say that when you're in the La Crosse area, it's the Coulee region, but when you're in Vernon and Crawford County, it's the Driftless region. But whichever that you describe it as, it's an absolutely beautiful place to live, work, and to raise a family. I'm new to the Wisconsin State Senate. I was just elected in November and sworn in January. So this is a meeting that I was looking forward to for a long time. I want to hear from you. I want to get your thoughts and your ideas on what we can do in order to make this region an even greater place in order to live, to work, and to raise a family. And to invest. We know that we're strategically located between Minneapolis and Madison. We have wonderful transportation as far as arteries. We need to make sure that we continue to rehabilitate those transportation systems and invest in them. But we've got the interstate highway, we've got the airport, we've got water ports, as well as numerous county roads and state highways. We have an economy that is diverse and mixed. From light manufacturing to healthcare, to financial, to food processing, to education. All of it is so very important. This is an area that people want to continue to come to. My family first came to this area in the 1800s, and I was raised in northern La Crosse County. I'm fifth generation. My wife and I raised our two children in this area as well. But we know that things are constantly changing. The economy is continuing to grow and evolve. How can we work together in order to create public-private partnerships to keep La Crosse and the La Crosse region strong, thriving, and growing as we continue to move forward? How can we make sure that we've got the amenities that we're looking for in our life? As we continue to grow in our profession and raise our family. How can we make sure that we create new jobs in this area? I'm very interested in technology. I'm very interested in innovation. I'm very interested in the new economy. But I also recognize the fact that, there's real ways that we can continue to invest here in this area with an unbelievable workforce that we have. Great transportation network, the education, the healthcare that we have. And then, of course, we've got the unbelievable landscape, the rolling hills, coulees, and valleys. It's breathtaking. It's absolutely breathtaking. And as a result of that, people come to visit, and I like to say they spend a lifetime. So we've got a lot that's going for us. But we also have Minneapolis just 2.5, 3 hours away north. That's attracting a lot of talent. Des Moines continues to attract talent, as does Madison, Chicago, Milwaukee. I want to make sure that we can continue to attract talent, businesses, local businesses to expand, regional businesses to come to La Crosse and to invest, national and international businesses. What do we need to do? Again, that's what I want to be able to work with you on. I'm a new state senator. I don't know what I do not know. I'm glad to have great partners like Representative Doyle and Representative Billings, who have been through this. They understand this, they understand the process. And I ask for their advice often. But I also want to work with you. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know you've got a lot going on. I look forward to continuing to hear from you and to work with you as we continue to make the Cooley region, the driftless region, the #1 place in the state of Wisconsin to live, work, and raise a family. So with that, Maggie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. I think the next question we had come in, this is more related to committee appointments. I know Jill and Steve, you guys mentioned this. You're all on various committees right now. Could maybe one of you just share how that works? Do you get to select what you're interested in and what committee you sit on, or are you appointed? And then how does what does that process look like within the committee in terms of how you identify legislation or put ideas forward to legislate on? Like, what does that look like?
Well, why don't I start with that one? At the beginning of each legislative session, we are asked by the leadership in our House, our partisan leadership, what our areas of interest are, and we kind of rank, here's my first choice for committee, second, and so forth, and let them know also how many committees we're interested in being on. The majority party always has more seats on the committee, so they've got better chance of getting your first choice if you're in the majority. The three of us are in the minority, so we have a fewer number of seats, but in that regard, I think for each of us, we've always looked at what is in our interest, but also what is in our district's interest. So, I represent a suburban and rural area, so I'm interested in really a kind of a cross section of things. And so I've been on the Jobs and Economy Committee, the Small Business Committee, as I said, the Insurance Committee, the Financial Institutions Committee, because that's kind of the hub of my district. But then when the special committees come up, I've been on a number of those too, when it's a particular topic. And that's where my law degree comes in handy. Sometimes those issues that come up have a extra twist to them, where having a law background is useful for getting the legislation going.
I also, I'll add that sometimes you're asked to do special task forces and be on some of those statewide organizations that I'm on, because of your interest and expertise in the building. That kind of builds up over time. And as you build your reputation and your work portfolio, often you're asked to do things like that. Some are really exciting asks. I was asked recently to be on the Historical Society Board of Curators. I honestly think I'm the youngest person on that board. Me and the other legislator from the Assembly. I find it very interesting. I love history and the history of Wisconsin, so I find it to be very interesting. They asked me if I would. I was asked to sit on that board because of my experience with Building Commission, because there's a project that we're undertaking now to build a new historical society in Madison, $70 million project. And also I had experience on tourism and knew the Historical Society director, and we worked well together. So sometimes these things come about that you don't really, you wouldn't even think. I would never really heavily pursue that committee, but it's been a really great experience. So sometimes you just happen into areas that are really fascinating. This job is so great. Every week, still after these years, I'm learning something every week.
Well, that is true. Every single day and every week you learn. I've been learning an awful lot. I was very fortunate. I asked for and was appointed to 5 committees that I think really serve this district. Because the thing is, the district that we represent is a real rural urban district. It is a 50-50 balance, and it's a very balanced district as well, as far as Republicans and Democrats. So I sought committee assignments on universities and technical college. We've got, two wonderful universities here in this district, as well as Western Technical College. I also wanted to serve on economic development and workforce development. I'm on that committee. So that's a very exciting committee, and there's a lot of work that's being done, and I enjoy that work. I'm on utilities and technology, and I'm excited to be on that committee because that's where broadband and, the southern part of this district that I represent in Crawford County, Prairie du Chien, and in rural areas near Prairie du Chien, as well as in southern Monroe County, Norwalk, over towards Wilton, Cashton area. There's real pockets of no broadband. And we all know how important that is, especially during this pandemic, to have broadband. I serve on the transportation and local units of government. I mentioned earlier how important to having a 21st century transportation system is, and how La Crosse is strategically positioned as an economic leader and an education leader because of our transportation system. And I want to make sure we can continue to invest in transportation going forward. And then I'm also the ranking member on the Agriculture and Tourism Committee. We do know how important tourism is to this district, but also agriculture. And my background prior to being elected to the Wisconsin State Senate is I've worked in agriculture and agriculture development and rural development for most of my professional career. So I'm excited to be on those committees. These committees are really locally based. They're focused on the needs of this district. And, I look forward to continuing to work in a bipartisan manner to move forward legislation that is helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question. When engaging with your constituents, have you observed any notable differences between the interests of the younger population, let's say 35 or 40 and under, and the older population when it comes to the community issues that they seem to either gravitate towards or bring up to you? Again, I'll just kind of let you guys speak as you see fit at that.
I think that's a good question. What jumped to my head right away was environmental issues and renewables. I mean, younger people get it. But I also have some folks who are retired that I see when I walk in the marsh. I try to get out there 5 days a week just as a stress reliever, and to have some human contact outside where you can actually talk to people. And there's retired people too who are feeling like, I want to leave a good place for my grandkids. I think that there is a certain urgency among younger people that I appreciate when looking at renewables and broadband and those sort of technologically connected issues. I was talking to students last night at UWL, and so I think their issues are not all that different from older people. Maybe legalization of marijuana is one that I hear that's a little more important to my college students. So I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with those observations. The other thing that I would say that I've noticed is the more political activism. I just read an article the other day that said that the current younger generation of people 18 to 30 or so is more politically engaged than their predecessors have been. And I think that's a good sign. And I think that one of the things that I hear a lot from that age group is the good government issues, in addition to the environmental issues. The good government issues like, making it easier for people to vote as opposed to harder to vote, concerns about gerrymandering and so forth, the influence of money in politics and all of those, what I would lump as good government issues. I hear from a lot of young people on those topics, and I think that bodes well for the future. The sooner that my generation gets off the stage and your generation gets on the stage, probably the better.
Well, thank you for that question, and that's a really good question. I guess I would answer it as far as forms of communication. This past year hasn't been easy, obviously, with this global pandemic we've had, but there's some that are very, very interested in having person-to-person meetings, like to have breakfast. They meet in the morning at a local coffee shop and have breakfast and kind of a roundtable conversation. And there's those that, individuals that feel very comfortable having conversations like we're having right now, virtually, or, working different forms of communication, social media versus having meetup, events. And so, that's something that I'm continuing to learn. And I found the engagement different as well, is that, continuing to engage with residents where they're at. And, some individuals are continuing to be very engaged in local community clubs, and, and then there are some that are not. So, how do you develop this communication system in order to continue to engage and to listen and hear? My mom taught me something early on in life, and she said, Brad, you have two of these and one of these. So it's very important that I listen, but how, and the engagement process with that. So Maggie, I'd love to continue to hear from you and from those on this call as far as what's the best process to do that. Because I think we've all know that, things are changing. Communication systems are changing as far as community engagement process is changing. And how can I and my colleagues continue to stay informed as we go forward here? So it's important questions, and that's why I like doing these events.
Great. I'm going to give a reminder to you guys all in the audience to submit some questions if you have them. And, if you want to just unmute now and ask a question, go for it. Otherwise, I have more to go. I just want to remind you all.
I can certainly ask a question here.
Yeah, go for it.
First off, I just want to say thank you so much to Representative Billings, Representative Doyle, and Senator Paff for joining us today. We know you're busy, so we really appreciate you carving out some time for us. My name is Callie Piota, and I work with Quick Trip. And one thing that Quick Trip really prioritizes is educating our coworkers on the importance of grassroots activism and how our coworkers can really be involved in their communities and how they can really take a stance on the issues that are important to them. So that got me thinking if you would have any suggestions or how you would encourage young professionals like us to participate in community grassroots activism and how we can take a stance on issues that we feel passionate about. I think this would be especially helpful for those who may not know where to start on this or who are not familiar with how to participate or have never done so before. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Let me jump in on that one first.
Go ahead, Representative.
Because that's one that I really have strong opinions on. Jill and Brad will tell you that every day we get these boilerplate emails from people on various issues, whatever. That's great if you're doing that. It doesn't have a whole lot of effect. What's more effective is pick up the phone, call us, send us an individual email, collar us at the restaurant or the grocery store or whatever. I mean, Brad and Jill and I are in this because we love interacting with people. I have people come up to me at Menards all the time because I spend a lot of time there, unfortunately. And they say, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm like, I'm happy to talk to you. I mean, I think that's great when people recognize me and feel comfortable enough to come up to me and express their opinion or ask a question or whatever. So just like in the business community, and my other hat is as a business person now at the Johns Flaherty Law Firm, formerly with my own law firm. It's no different than politics. You get things done through interaction with other people. So if you're interested in a particular issue, track one of us or all three of us down and talk to us or send us an email or give us a call. It's that easy. We love to hear from you.
I will just echo what Representative Doyle said. He's absolutely right. We would love to hear from you, and just try and find as much information as you can as well on a given topics, because there's an awful lot of different theories or ideologies that are out there. And the thing is this, is that, trying to, look it over and, but share your thoughts and your ideas, because we do want to hear. It's very, very important. And because we're all in this together. I mean, we are all in this together. This is all of our home, and we want this place to be, we want it to continue to be exciting and provide opportunities for all of us. So, this is our home together. So let's work together on this. Thank you.
I think that I'll just add that clearly you're all pretty adept at reaching out and figuring this out because you're part of this group, right? And I think this is a great first step for learning about community involvement, grassroots. How do you get involved? How do you make a difference in your community? Here you are right here. So I would imagine this is a great group for that. But if you're talking kind of outside of politics, grassroots organizations connecting to your community, I would also say, just kind of keep your ear out and search out for. We have such great organizations in La Crosse that do all sorts of good work. Whether it's food pantry type work or domestic abuse type work, or, if there's an issue that you feel passionately about, it's easy to, I would think, to look online or look at, community calendars, Explore La Crosse, something like that, and see if you can find like people. There's always strength in numbers, right? And it's also more fun to work on issues with other people. So I would also look at groups like that and find ways. When I was new to town, that's kind of what I did. I thought about what I was passionate about and tried to connect with groups that would help feed that passion.
The other thing I would add is get yourself elected to something. I mean, city council, town board, county board, school board, it's not that difficult to get either in an elected position or one of the committees that's appointed in one of those bodies. It's a great way to learn about your local government. And in La Crosse area, our local governments tend to work together very well. So you'll meet a lot of people. That whole network building thing is important, but you'll also see really how government works, not just the stuff that you read in the paper or see on the news. You'll actually get to see the behind the scenes stuff, and you'll feel like you're getting something done.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Really appreciate that.
Sure.
Great question, Kelly.
Thank you.
Another question we got is around childcare. Obviously, access to quality and affordable childcare was an issue even prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic really heightened that issue for this area and for the state. I guess, do you guys have any updates on this childcare situation? Any maybe positive news that might be coming down the pipeline in support of, making sure that access to that childcare is available for people in our age group?
I love that question.
Thought you would.
Yeah, this is a passion of mine, and it's been for several years now. And I think really for the first time in several years, I'm really seeing movement on this issue with both people on both sides of the aisle. Our Committee on Children and Family had a listening session on this issue last week. And actually, Wendy Whitehead from HR at Quick Trip testified and did a fabulous job.
Yes, I listened to that too. Yeah, she really did a great job there.
Yeah, it was so great to hear from an employer. The reality is, as we're learning more about brain development in children, and the Children's Caucus helped with this issue, I think, in Madison, what we know is that there's a huge amount of brain development in those first 3 years. Children are not just lumps of clay. Incredible brain development. Majority brain development is happening there. But we fund, pre-K to higher education, and all of that those early years are just kind of left for parents to figure it out. So I think because parents have had such struggles finding affordable, accessible, quality childcare for their kids, And so people are staying home, they're not joining the workforce. And employers are hearing this concern from their workers, and they're losing workers because of this. It's like we're joining these two important groups together, and a lot of voices are being heard now. There's good organization from advocates around these issues, like I've heard for K-12 education. Now I'm hearing that those really important voices on early childhood education. So I am, and the governor in his budget put $100 million into this, including grants to help, that half of those grants have to go for salaries for workers. Because I've heard a lot of people say that we're losing our childcare workers to Quick Trip, places like Quick Trip, where they can, have better, they can get have a better salary and some benefits. And but there are people who are passionate about doing that work. They love working with children, and we should be able to make it worth their while. There was somebody who said to me, and I'll never forget this, they said, we pay people more to haul away our garbage than we do to take care of our young children during the day. It's just wrong. So the governor has really focused in on that area, with the First Lady is also very concerned about this area. And so that's a big part of the budget this year that I'm very excited about. And I keep talking about and pushing and getting people to weigh in on, as the Republicans take the budget and form it into what they would like. I think it's important that they're hearing from those voices too. People on both sides of the aisles are hearing from those voices, and hopefully we can keep that funding in the budget, because it's past time that we address this issue. It's been years of neglecting early childhood education and children's issues, and that's turned a corner. I'm more positive this year than I ever have been. You can tell I'm excited about this.
That's really great to hear.
Well, I will just real quickly, if I can, Maggie, I will say that in my introductory remarks, I mentioned this rural-urban district and that rural-urban divide. There's no divide on this issue. Doesn't matter if you live in a rural area or if you're living in the downtown La Crosse. Affordable and accessible, high-quality childcare is so very, very important. And we hear about it. I hear about it everywhere I go. And trying to make the economics work has been so interesting, because just think about this a second. We are losing childcare providers because there's just the economics don't work. But then as a young adult, or if you've got a family, I can tell you when our kids were in childcare, we were paying over $1,000 a month. So you have that cost, and then at the same time, it still isn't working out for those that are childcare providers. So it's the economics as well, trying to make that work. And there's a lot of people that are engaged in this right now at the state level. I'm very excited, as Representative Billings has stated, that the efforts that are being done within our state budget. Representative Billings and Representative Doyle and I last week hosted a roundtable conversation in which we had the Secretary of the Department of Children and Families here in the state of Wisconsin. She presented and spoke about the work that is being done. But this is so important. This is crucial. And not only is the early childhood, as Representative Billings spoke about, but also the aftercare and what we can do after school. That is so very, very important. And here in the La Crosse area, we're very lucky. We've got organizations like the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Clubs, and other organizations. But the need is there, and there's definitely the need in these rural areas as well. So it's a topic that I'm focusing on. I will continue to focus on it because I think it's pro-family, it's pro-child, it's pro-workforce, it's pro-economy. We just need to try and get this done. So thanks for the question.
Steve, anything to add?
They both said what I would have said, but much better.
All right, perfect. I think we'll have time for at least one more question. If you have one burning in your head, type it into the chat real quick, or just unmute yourself. I think the final question here is, what initiatives are coming up for the area? Like what could we see or expect to see coming down in the La Crosse area? And so some examples that were submitted with the question, things around sustainability projects, new businesses or construction to current businesses in the area, things around, electric or hybrid vehicles. Are there anything in those topic areas that we could expect to see, or in other topic areas that would be of particular interest to like the young professional age group?
Well, I'll start on that real quick. And I know that Representative Billings and Representative Doyle have an awful lot to add there. But, the electric vehicles, that's a conversation that's taking place. And I was excited a few weeks ago to be with Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes as we were in the city of La Crosse with the La Crosse City Bus Fleet, the MTU. They are receiving 2 electric buses and to put in their fleet starting immediately this fall. And there will be many, many more. And so I'm excited about that because it's a demonstration of how La Crosse is leading the way. It's stepping forward on this. There is, Representative Billings and Doyle and I have been working very hard to try and get state funding for new building projects at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. As we know, UW-La Crosse is a wonderful university. And the thing is that it is not just a regional leader, it is a state leader. And so, we need to upgrade the building facilities that we have on that campus so we can continue to attract high quality students from not just this area, but from around the state that want to come to UW-La Crosse. And of course, once we introduce them to the Cooley region, we have a better chance of keeping them here. I'm always excited about what's happening within our economy. I mentioned earlier the fact that, we've got light manufacturing as well as, healthcare and transportation and financial. Our businesses are continuing to develop and adapt. I mean, we've got Quick Trip on this call here. It's just a perfect example of how a family-owned business is really invested in this area and in this state and this region. And they're going to continue to move forward with the work that they're doing. And so, I'm excited about just knowing what I can do to to facilitate and assist in regards to that. Having Gunderson and Mayo here is just, it's so important. And I think that we can build upon our healthcare. I really do. I think that not only can we build upon the high quality care that we provide our patients, but also I think we can even do more when it comes to healthcare education. And again, we're seeing that at Gunderson and at Mayo. So, I look forward to that. And I continue to look forward to what's happening in the southern part of the district. Organic Valley plays a very large presence in the southern part of the state Senate district that I represent. And they are continuing to, adapt to a changing marketplace. They're adapting to consumer demands and consumer needs and this global pandemic. They're continuing to create new products. And the great thing is those products that they're creating are coming from the farm fields and dairy barns here in the area, from the farmers that are producing the crops and the cows that are producing the milk. It's all happening here. So outside of that, I want to say this. I'm excited that we can maybe get back to our festivals this year. I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about getting back outside and seeing people and getting together again. So with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Doyle or Representative Billings.
I think that if you look at Western Wisconsin, we're not a whole lot different than the rest of the state in terms of our priorities, education, transportation, and healthcare. The difference between us and the rest of the state is that we're already a step ahead on so many of those things. We've learned in La Crosse how to work together. For example, in the healthcare area with the Allied Health Center and our medical facilities working together with our higher educational facilities to raise the bar in terms of healthcare deliverance in this area. Transportation is obviously a big deal for my district. It seems like an awful lot of people live in my district, but they work in Jill's district and they need to get to and from work. Our traffic jams aren't like they were when I was working out in Washington, D.C., but we still need to get people to and from work, to get our products to and from the marketplace. And so I was real excited in the governor's budget to see, and actually also in the federal package that the Biden administration is putting out, money available for local transportation, whether it be improving roads, not necessarily building new ones, but improving the quality of the existing ones, also mass transit and alternative forms of transportation. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. The last thing I want to say, and to go back to this theme of what I have been mentioning throughout, is this cooperation. And so in my area, we're seeing the 3 of our units of government, Onalaska, Holman, and Holland, working together to try to get this shared responsibility for fire protection worked out, and now they're even involving the city of La Crosse, a discussion in that regard. I think that is the wave of the future. I think that everybody is looking for a way to do things better and not reinvent the wheel, but to invent a better wheel. And so in that regard, so often we're seeing ideas come out of La Crosse, whether it's the city of La Crosse or La Crosse County, that are projects and our ideas that are piloted here in Western Wisconsin and then become adopted across the rest of the state. I always like to say that when my colleagues on La Crosse County Board go to Wisconsin Counties Association seminars and that all the counties go to once or twice a year, we don't usually learn too much. And the reason that we don't is because we're usually the presenters, because people are coming to there to see what we're doing in La Crosse. And so I'm really proud to be from this area of the state, because we really do things differently here. And so the innovation that you're going to see, whether it's in broadband or intergovernmental cooperation or cooperation between our nonprofits and our profit-based businesses, I mean, it really seems to start here. And so keep your eyes open. It seems like there's something new all the time.
I'll clean up and just mention a couple issues that I see as issues of importance and emerging issues, especially for our area. I'm going to talk about PFAS and clean water first. We've had issues out on French Island, of course, with PFAS around the airport. You probably have seen that in the news. And the governor, before we knew PFAS were in our area, the governor had included funding in his budget for 11 positions at the DNR to deal with this issue. He included more positions at the state hygiene lab, the people that do the testing. Right now, people are waiting 3 or 4 months to get a test result from our state hygiene lab. He included money for an action plan and then implementation of that action plan. So that was I think that's a good first start. We've seen PFAS in a few areas of Wisconsin. I think that we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg. I think people who have airports where firefighters were doing practicing with those foams, and people who have private wells near the airport, I think every district that has that combination are going to see high numbers in their drinking water. Plus, we have PFAS can be found in other things like cookware and those stain repellent, water repellent sprays, and even packaging for our food. So those are forever chemicals. They don't go away, and we really need to address that. There's I feel a huge sense of urgency around that. We had a task force on clean water last year. That really they came to do a listening session in La Crosse and several areas around the state, and some good legislation came out of that. And one of my bills was included in that. That unfortunately COVID hit and the Senate didn't look at any of that legislation. And we've really got to look at that again and attack that issue of clean water. And that's a tricky one. That's a complicated issue, but we really need to address it. We just need to do it. And then finally, and we've been talking about this for a while, all of us have, and it's COVID recovery. what we can do to aid, especially our small businesses as we come out of COVID, and make sure that our local economies are healthy. I think the governor has invested good money in that area. Before COVID hit, in tourism industry, Brad had mentioned that earlier, that's a huge industry in Wisconsin. And the governor created a special office of outdoor recreation with a head of that to really highlight all the beauty that we have here in Wisconsin and encourage people to join us in enjoying that and spending their dollars in our state. And that happened to be very fortuitous, as people weren't able to stay in the big cities and hotels and eat at restaurants. They weren't as comfortable with that. Our northern area, our mom and pop resorts and our areas like that where you could rent little cabins, that went great guns. So I'll be interested in the comeback of our tourism industry. I feel good about it. We've got good people who are working on that issue. I think we're going to end up coming out stronger in the end. But we need to keep an eye on that and make sure we're feeding that.
Great. Well, we are just about at time here. So I just want to thank you again, Representative Billings, Representative Doyle, Senator Paff, for taking your time and spending it with us today. I think this is really important to have these types of meetups, especially with our young professionals in this area. So many of them are not lifers from La Crosse. They recently relocate here. And so just having this connection point and understanding what is coming up and what to keep an eye on in the area is so beneficial for them. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
And for everyone else, thank you. And we'll see you in May for our May events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.